And so welcome to all the participants. And I'm not sure if they were able to look at our small talk or chat. I'm sure they were listening, but we'll start formally now. So welcome everyone. Please give me a raise of hands if you can hear me properly. Perfect. Okay, great. So thank you for joining this third webinar of the three-part series on virtual job search skills. These webinars were specially designed to help you overcome certain challenges or barriers that we all face with our job search, especially in the prevailing virtual world. Today, we're going to discuss about what the employers are looking for and what are their expectations from new employees in the current unpredictable work environment. And thank you, Laurie, once again for being with us today. For those of you who don't know him, Laurie is a certified management consultant and founder member of Kensington Associates. He is a human resource graduate from UNB and has worked in the leadership roles with multiple organizations. So with that, Laurie, I hand over the floor to you.
Thank you. Well, good morning again, everybody. I noticed a few people on here that have been on before. You again have the advantage of seeing me. I don't have the advantage of seeing you, but I'm sure you're all very, very good looking. I appreciate Ignite Fredericton for putting this on, and I want to thank Nasheen and her organization for doing this on your behalf. And I say that particularly today because when we were starting out and we were starting our careers and we were looking for ways to break in and do things, essentially we had nothing. There weren't a lot of services that were available to us, and it was just the way it was back then. So man, I'm so happy that these things are happening today and that people are doing what they can to help everybody that they can. So in that light, thanks for signing up. Thanks for joining in, and welcome to this edition of What the Heck is Going On Getting Employment in the Province of New Brunswick, the country of Canada. What are employers looking for, and what is all this stuff? What do they want, for crying out loud? Well, listen, we actually are employers. We hire people to work for our own organization, but we also have a list of clients that we work for that we hire for them. They ask us to act as their recruiting arm, and we do. We do it for them and for our clients specifically. So the information that I'll share with you today is really related to our environment and the people that we work with, primarily here in Atlantic Canada, but I'll give you some examples too about clients that we have out in the western side of the country in Vancouver. So in essence, what is an employer looking for, especially in these times? We're doing recruitment right now for a series of positions that we're looking to fill for our clients, and we're doing all of the recruitment online. We will be having Zoom interviews. We will be doing these things online. And I have to tell you, what we're looking for doesn't change. So the challenge for you is actually not a new one. The challenge is for us trying to identify the things that we're looking for without having the opportunity of having these people in the same room. And I'll give you a little bit of insight later how that changes for the person doing the interviewing, and as well as how it can be an advantage to you by doing it virtually. So to begin with, in order for you to understand, and oh, by the way, anytime anybody has any questions, the Q&A is there, the chat room is there, interrupt, ask me questions, I'm more than happy to do that. And Nosheen, if you notice I'm rambling on and people are trying to ask a question, please cut it. So in essence, before you can understand what an employer wants, you need to understand what an employer does. What's their role in life? Why do they exist? Employers have organizations or businesses because they've identified a need that exists in either the community or somewhere in the world, and they have discovered a way to plug it. So in essence, we've identified a need, One of the needs that we all share in common is we all need to make a living. We all need to generate revenue so that we can live our living. Some better than others. Some don't want an extravagant lifestyle. They just want to live. So at the end of the day, here it comes. Society says we have all of these needs. We need to eat. We need to get dressed. We need to have houses. We need to drive cars. And in order to do all of those things, somebody must supply the food that we eat. Somebody must supply the clothes that we buy. Somebody must supply the car that we drive. So employers look at it as such a fashion that I see the need, I'm going to fill that need, and I'm going to need to do it profitably. So I need to do it so that I can generate some money in the process. I can tell you that what we're going to discuss today is going to be Pareto ruled. Pareto rule means 80-20. 80% of the employers of the definitions I'm going to give you today will apply to about 80% of employers. There's another 20% that are different. They have different situations that they live by. They have different things that they need to address. And sometimes they're just jerks. So at the end of the day, I'm really talking about the 80% that are good employers. So what happens is these good employers have identified needs that they need to plug, and now they're taking on the accountability and the responsibility to plug the needs. So what does that mean? Well, I have to either have a manufacturing site, I have to either have equipment to produce, I have to either have space that I need to rent, I need to either have buildings that I need to rent space into these people that are delivering services. Ergo, it takes a pile of cash. So it doesn't matter who the employer is, they need to raise a pile of cash. Understand that as an employee, I don't need to raise a pile of cash to work somewhere. I need to penetrate, get in and work there. But the employer needs to generate a pile of cash to create the environment you're going to work in. So that employer normally has to vest everything they have into the organization. So the banks will say, yes, I'll lend you $1 million. Investors will say, yes, I'll forward you $300,000 on a line of credit. But these people don't want to get paid back every month. The employer then turns around and says, I can't do this alone. I need people to help. And most times we want to contribute to the society around us by providing jobs to people that they can then work at to earn a living. So really the first message I want to send to you is most employers are looking at a joint venture with their employees to deliver a product or a service that people want at a price tag where we can make money. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, employers, they're unfair. They make a whole lot of money and they don't pay us enough and they work us to death and blah, blah, blah. The 20% part, maybe. The 80% part, however, need to do this in tandem. They need to be able to say, you need to make a reasonable living, I need to make a reasonable living, and mine is probably going to be a little bit better than yours because A, I took all the risk. B, if this thing falls apart, you need to find a new job. I likely need to find a new wife. She's left. I need to find a new house. It's gone. I need to find a new employment process somewhere. It went down the tubes. So not only do I have to go out and start again, I start with zero credit, a whole lot of hassle, and a whole lot of pain. That's the reason why employers and employees differ a little bit in their appreciation of who gets what when. You'll see headlines sometime that I think are disgusting as well, where organizations abuse their power and they go to governments and they say, oh, we need all kinds of money, bail us out, it's COVID, it's this, it's that, bail us out. And they get a whole pot of money to try to pay people minimal amounts while paying exorbitant bonuses to directors and senior management. These are not the people we're likely going to work for. We're likely going to work for the 80% of SMEs that have it as challenging as we do right now to try to stay alive and make this thing happen and continue business. One thing for sure that I'm comfortable in is that we will get through COVID. There will be a vaccine for COVID. We will get back to some form of normalcy in a given period of time. That means we're going to need people again. That means we're going to need people working again. Employers have had time to rethink what they're looking for in terms of employees. Employees have had time to rethink what they should be looking for when it comes to employers. Now we have a golden opportunity to match. We need to match these things. How do we do that? The very first thing an employer is going to look for when they're looking for an employee is, God forbid, just any form of work ethic. You may think that sounds funny, but it's not. Our generation, I'm talking about me, did a good and a bad thing in raising this generation. I have millennials. I have a son, he's 31. So what happened when we started raising them, and I talked to you about him last time in our last session when he was going to flight school and the things he had to learn to be a little bit professional in his moving forward. We're not even looking for that. We're not even looking for professional. We're not even, good Lord, we're just looking for people with any kind of work ethic. Today I have employers that tell me that people sign up for interviews and don't show up. So we've blocked off that morning of time to meet 6 people, half hour at a time to show up. Sometimes we have people working manufacturing floors and all of a sudden they come in, we describe the job to them, they're fine, they want to do it, everything is good, they get on the floor, they start doing the job, they get their first break, they go home, they don't come back. They work their first morning, they go for lunch, they get in their car, they drive away, they don't come back. So employers understand that we are going to spend a whole lot more time now front end in the triage of people that are applying for the job prior to even doing the interview. So what we're looking for in the application process are a couple of things. We've now set it up and structured it so that we ask for, and we'll post the job. As a matter of fact, if you want, go on LinkedIn. We have 3 positions that we're posting for right now. And you'll see, or go on Indeed or go on wherever you go. And you'll see 3 positions that we're looking for. One is assistant controller in QC. One is a software developer. And one is a CEO for a very large organization. These jobs range anywhere in salary from $40,000 to $150,000 a year. So in essence, what we're doing with these positions is we have a job posting. It tells you the generalities of what we're looking for within the realm of the position to encourage you to apply. The first order of triage is, does the letter accompanying the CV, because we ask you to submit your CV, match anything to do with the job posting? Or is it just somebody out there firing at every posting they can possibly do? Because if nothing else, the cover letter should reflect the posting. Should, in this cover letter, tell me why I'm even bothering to apply. Why my experience, why my desire has me applying. Then it'll prompt me to want to read your resume. Okay, we will cite things in a job description, much in the way that governments, when we as employers go for government contracts, they will supply little things, little tricks that they use for initial triage. I'm going to give you one that'll break your heart. Sometimes when you're applying for a government contract, it's very much like applying for a job. They set out the criteria, they tell you what they want, and then they play a little game with you. They say that the proposal that you're submitting that took you probably a month to work on, in a few thousand man hours and cost you 10 grand to put together, but it's a very beneficial project. If you get it, you'll do well. The label, they tell you, address it here, post it there, cite this reference, put this number down, do this. A lot of people don't follow that exactly. They put 3/4 of the information on, they put the mailing address on, they put other things on, and before their envelope is even opened, it goes through an initial triage. Did the mailing sticker have exactly the information we wanted in exactly the format we wanted it? No, trash. It never even gets read. Your 1,000 hours, you may have had the best proposal in the world, but the problem becomes this. You weren't able to follow simple mailing instructions. What's going to happen when things get complicated along the way? We're not going to search through this to make sure you did everything else right because you got the first part wrong. Don't believe me? I'm going to challenge you to go on a website after we're done and search out Van Halen brown M&Ms. Most of you probably know this story. For the 3 of you that don't, I'll make it very brief. The band Van Halen, a very popular rock band in the 80s, 90s, 70s, were playing stadiums around the world, and Eddie Van Halen, dubbed one of the best guitar players in the world, oftentimes would be suspended 50 feet in the air and then traveled around the crowd to be brought down to the stage. If you ever saw it, it was something quite unique to see. However, the stage setup and hosting a Van Halen concert was a very complex process. It demanded a lot of different intricacies within the stage. Therefore, venues that wanted to host the contract had to supply local talent that could do a certain amount of things while they were getting these things ready. To ensure that they had the right people, Van Halen's contract, buried way in the back, when it came down to the dressing room, told the venue that the boys were a bit prissy, so they wanted a giant bowl of M&Ms in the middle of the dressing room. However, there was a caveat. In this giant bowl of M&Ms, they needed all the brown M&Ms removed because they were freaky about brown color and the boys wanted what the boys wanted and they were prissy little shits. And they wanted this. What would happen the day before the concert is the concert managers would come to the venue and the arena managers were all excited, wanted to show them the stage, everything else. And all they would say is, well, what we're really interested in is seeing the dressing room. Is it ready? Because according to the contract, one of the first things that had to be ready was the dressing room. So the guy said, yeah, the dressing room's ready, come on down. So the arena manager would go in, immediately go to the bowl of M&Ms, and if they spotted any brown M&Ms, would cancel the show. Can you imagine how many hundreds of thousands of dollars went into the prep for this show? And they would actually cancel it. And the arena manager would go berserk. What are you talking about? We miss brown M&Ms. How can that be important? And he said, here's the problem. If you can't get something that simple right, how can I expect and trust you with the most valuable asset I have, which is Eddie Van Halen, suspended 50 feet in the air with all the safety precautions that need to be done? I now need to know that I have to go behind you in every little thing you do to make sure it's right. And I don't have time to do that between now and the show. The show effectively is canceled. Think it sounds ridiculous? Check it out online. So here's the very first thing that puzzles employers. I am normally going to set out in pretty clear guidelines what I'm looking for in my position. So in my position, I'm going to send out, before I even send out the job description, I'm going to send out a job posting. Why? Because it's even easier to respond to. Sometimes the job description is a little technical and we don't want to get into a whole bunch of those things until we've done a bit of a triage. So we tease you in the posting. We set it out, we send things that we'd like to have, need to have to have. In some instances, we'll say minimum 2 years experience is required. Every job interview person in the world is going to tell you, apply anyway. You never know. And I'm not discouraging you from applying, but I can tell you this. As they start coming in, as soon as I get the first 4 or 5 that meet the requirement, I'm going to triage all the rest. I'm not going to bother reading all of them because they didn't meet that basic requirement. And they didn't entice me once they did to move on to something else. So if I got people that can at least read the job posting, respond adequately. Here's another one. This is your first form of impression. You're sending me your letter, you're sending me your CV. I understand you might have grammatical error, you might miss a word. I get that. It's possible. Um, Pink Unicorn. Sorry, I'm gonna stop here for just 1 second, and I'll reignite again. In the chat room, Jennifer's asking about Pink Unicorn job postings. For those of you that might not be familiar with the term, it's one where it's done so specifically it meets only one person. I once applied for a position, young in my career, for the position of Chief of Statistics for Fisheries and Oceans Canada, a federal job. They have to go through a bunch of things in the federal posting. I happen to know the Director General at the time who encouraged me to apply. At the time, I didn't understand Pink Unicorn postings. But a friend of mine told me after I got the job, and I was going up against postdoctorate people that I thought, I don't stand a prayer. This person told me, Laurie, did you not realize that you can't cut your hair short enough to get this job if your name's not Laurie Bourque? And when I look back on it and I thought about the board and I thought about my prepping and I thought about everything else, I thought, you know what? This thing really was lining up so that I would get it. What do you do about those postings, Catherine? Nothing. There's nothing you can do about it. If it's not, if you're in that, and here again, I'm going to Pareto this, 20% of the job applications, yep, they're probably designed with somebody in mind. 80% are not. In the 3 that we have posted right now, I don't have a clue. There is nobody that we've got lined up for these. They're completely wide open. 80% of the time, you're going to have good positions. After a while, you'll begin to identify pink unicorns, and you'll start to say, this is so specific. No one could meet this unless they have someone in mind. So good on you for that. It's a very real possibility. So getting back to the non-pink unicorn applications, the job posting goes out. It asks you to send me a CV, and it will always tell you if you have additional questions, reach out. So I have people reaching out to me because I'm the point of contact on that. And I'm going to tell them all the very same thing. We have a job posting. They're asking about the job description. They're asking about additional information, and I will tell them all the same thing. In the first round, we've got the posting out. We would like for you to submit your CV to go through the first round of triage. Based on our discussion, based on your email, I encourage you to apply. You seem to have, the baseline of what we're looking for at least. However, we will go through a first line of triage. Some people will often ask me, what's involved in that first line of triage? The standard. Did you respond well to the posting? Does your resume line up with these things? Do you have the minimums of what we're looking for? And then we'll do basically a triage and not have 82 people go into round 1. We'll pick the top 10 based on criteria that best fit. Once you hit the top 10, you go to round 2. That's when a job description will be supplied to you. That's when I encourage you to go online, learn all you can about the organization. We will likely sneak in a few little nuggets on the website that only the people that went to the website after the first triage will know about it. We'll be able to speak to it. That will allow us to say, oh, okay, these people now are paying serious attention to this thing. They want to know as much as they can about the organization. So they're actually going on and asking questions about this stuff. They want to know about what's going on. So now we get to the first interview. And in round 1 of your interview, it will likely be done now remotely. It'll be done over Zoom. It will be done in some form of fashion like we're living right now. Maybe not even because of COVID, maybe just because, hey, we're all getting used to this now. We all like it. We're going to have, in this particular case, I can't see you all because there's too many, but in a Zoom interview, you'll have, I don't know, probably 3 people from the organization and 1 person interviewing. So you're going to have a 4-way split screen. You'll see everybody all the time anyway. And then we're going to identify a few things in round 1 interviewing. Round one interviewing will be your ability to present yourself. How well did you present yourself during round one? You've now had the job description, you've had other things. We're going to go through a set list of questions. Those set list of questions are going to ask you, first of all, fixed answer questions. Yes, no, maybe, could be. And then we're going to have purposely some open-ended ones. Tell us about a time when. And then we'll look for your response. How capable of you are you of responding to this? How familiar are you with you? We're not going to try to trip you up, trap you, do anything. What we're going to try to do is use a situational question that applies to this type of position. And if it said you require extensive experience, we're going to test that. If it says you require minimal experience, we'll test that. But if we're asking for 2 years of experience, you say yes, you have your thing on here. The question that we ask you should apply to somebody with 2 years of experience. And how you handle it and how you answer it will be a part of what we're looking for in terms of your ability to represent the organization while you're working there. Other instances are going to be, look, we need bodies on the production line. Our questions are going to be very simple. All right, here's the job, here's the production line. You know what it is. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and they're going to be very baseline. Do you have basic transportation? Jennifer is asking, can you ask questions in advance? In advance of triage 1, you can ask them, yep. Will it get you anything? Nope. Triage 1, we're just looking for you to respond to the posting, give us your information, give us your CV. We will then do a triage and then come to you for round 1. In round 1, you can ask questions in advance. In round 1, in your interview, be prepared for this. Okay, we've now asked you all our questions. In closing, do you have any questions for us? Please do not make your first question around salary. Normally it's declared, normally it's disposed, normally it's talked about. Salary and benefits will always match the type of position you're looking for. You don't have to worry about it. What I want to know from people when they're asking me questions are things that are pertinent to employer-employee relations, okay? If I don't tell you about things like health and safety, it's fair for you to ask, do you have a health and safety committee on site? It's fair for you to ask, is this a unionized environment? It's fair for you to ask, what are the potentials for overtime, on your end? Yeah, I'm prepared to do the things that you need me to do, you know, to contribute to this organization's growth. Because don't forget, during the interview, I'm the best person in the world. But when it comes down to real time, that's what employers are looking for. We're trying to judge from this interview online, is this person for real? Do they represent the things they're saying? Do they represent the things they're writing? And do they get what we're looking for? Let me ask you a question. Be fair. I'm good on this. As Fauci said, it's part of the job. Do you think I've represented what we're talking about or have been talking about in the last half hour fairly and accurately? Thoughts? Okay, cool, good. Just wanted to make sure that people were seeing this. And it would be okay for some people to answer back and say, I don't know, Laurie, it's pretty harsh. You know, I don't think employers, and that would be fair game. The only difference with me is I don't gain or lose anything from this today. Ignite Fredericton, as a matter of fact, are kind enough to offer this process at no charge to anybody. So I think that's brilliant. I think that's a wonderful thing that they're doing. So it's kind of a coffee chat about what's the reality of this. The reality of this is employers, and I've heard this all my life, employers say it's hard to find good people. 30 years ago, I heard it, it's hard to find good people. It's still true today. It's hard to find good people. Catherine says, why do employers not disclose or give tips of why a candidate wasn't a good fit after round one? That's a really good question. Catherine, employers, for the most part, don't want to be mean people who don't want to tell you, what the good, the bad, and the ugly is. They're busy trying to get on with the business of the day. We tend to, after round one, reach out to the people, anybody involved in our practice that we've been involved in hiring. We can't do it for basic triage. I can tell you right now that the 3 jobs that we have posted, we've had them posted now for about 7 days and have roughly about 300 applicants combined in all the 3. I can't get back to all 3 or 4 or 500. However, in the triage, we're going to have 10 for each job. We will get back to them. We will let them know, why they did or didn't make it to the next round. And thank them for their participation and give them a pointer or 2 on this is where the other people scored higher, okay, in this particular round. So it's a good question. After round one, I think they should, but not all do because they're really not being mean people. They found the candidates they need. They're anxious to get on with business and start doing the things that they need to do, especially now that they've been shut down for a while and they need to reopen. So that's basically why. Sometimes I feel employers are not exactly sure what to look for. You can call and ask for a review. Absolutely. You can call and ask for a review of your interview. If you've made it to an interview stage, I think that's a very, very sound thing to do. Call back, ask for the results of the interview. Very few employers, from what I have seen, provide any feedback. This is true. Absolutely true. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying it's true. The fair part is if you've invested in applying, if you've invested to get back to me in your time and energy to come to the interview, I should respond to you. And the next question from Kara is, how do I feel about potential employers who never get back to employees after an interview? It would be easy for me to say, bad employer, don't go there. I know too many of them now to say, would they have liked to gotten back to you, and do they feel kind of bad that they didn't get back to you? My answer would probably be yes, and they are good employers. But they're probably going through a bit of a crisis as well, and they're anxious to get back on the line, and they got new people that they got to train, and they got other things that they have to do. I'll tell you, the ones that do get back to you are the ones you want to keep an eye on for the next time they have a job posting available. John asks, if employers don't find the time to get back to candidates, sometimes candidates won't get back to employers. It's a good point. That's a really good point. There's a yin and a yang here. You didn't make it past the first round. Did you reach out to find out why? You didn't get somewhere in this. Did you reach out to find out why? Because it's a joint responsibility. As an employer, I took my time and energy to speak to you. As an employee, you took your time and energy to speak to me. I made a decision. I went on to the next round with someone else. You deserve to know why. I agree. Is it ultimately only my responsibility as an employer to get back to you? Or should you, if you haven't heard from me, reach out to me? I would encourage you to reach out. I would encourage you to find out why you didn't make it. All they can do is not answer you. And that would be a bad thing. Because for those good employers that I said would like to have found the time to get back to you, they certainly should get back to you if you reach out. Tips for behavioral. 3 questions are always asked. I've A-listed 1, but didn't get the offer. The others I received a B on question. Very frustrating. Yeah, tips on behavioral interviewing. A biggest tip I can possibly give you, be yourself. There are so many people that have given me advice over the years on what to do, how to behave, things that I've had. and what do I do? You know, and sometimes I get to the interview and I'm trying to remember what everybody said and sit straight, look this way, don't do that, pick your nose, don't pick your nose, touch your head, don't touch your head, touch your nose. None of that matters anymore. Be yourself, be honest. Sometimes an employer might ask you a question that you don't have the answer for. Think about it for a minute and then say, that's a very interesting question. Can I think about it and get back to you? If it's a do or die question, they'll think about it and say, absolutely, and now you've blown it. There's nothing you can do for that. The chances are, though, I will tell you this, if they're a good employer, that question should have been known by the person they were asking it to. It's possible I might have blown it and not know it and probably should have, and in hindsight, look at it and say, yeah, I should have anticipated that one. It really becomes, and M. Renew 73 says it's in regard to what you would do in a situation for this question. So in all fairness, you should have an answer. Because in essence, it's just them asking you, talk to me about a situation where you've had this happen to you, and what did you do about it? And even if you hadn't had it happen to you, you can say, I can't recall it happening to me anytime recently. However, this is what I think I would do based on that situation, and then provide an answer. Be yourself and be honest, because whatever answer you give, that's going to look for you to do in that situation. Does that make any sense to you guys? Biggest tip I can give you on behavioral interviewing, be yourself. I remember going for a job interview, and it was an important job interview. And I don't know why, I'm normally quite okay. You know, I get nervous, I do all the things, I have the anxiety, the butterfly stomach, all the rest of this stuff. I don't know what it was this day, I was extremely anxious. Started sweating bullets in a shirt. So I'm constantly wiping myself, and the poor guy interviewing me starts feeling really bad. I think it was in June or July, it was warm. The building didn't have air conditioning, but he had a fan. And he ended up turning the fan on me because he felt so bad for me. And I'm still sweating like bullets pulling this thing off. So anyway, I get home and I tell my wife, that's done. Worst interview I ever had. I must have looked like an idiot. Ended up getting the job, and I asked him, why did you hire me? It was such a horrible interview. And he said, because you stuck it through. You know, you remained calm, you did your thing, you knew it was embarrassing as crap, but you still kept going through it, and that was great. So Renew says, I am old school and believe that my great personality and total honesty will drive and sell itself through. You know what? I agree. I'm old school too, but I even think new school, the new school people out there, tell us, is it important that, you know, your personality and your total honesty drive it through? There are some that'll say, look, this is a technical job. I'm not here to be best friends with anybody. I'm here to do the technical job, get it done. I'm the best technical person to get it done. So all of this soft belly crap isn't important for this job. Maybe. However, you'll likely have a boss. You'll likely have coworkers. You'll likely find yourself in situations where a little bit of character and a little bit of personality do apply. So on that highly technical job, am I going to give it to the cheerleader? Not necessarily. But all things being equal, if you're yourself and you're honest, we're going to go with you. We're going to go with the personality that matches the job. So be yourself, be honest. You're not the greatest at every job you're going to apply for. You're not going to be the greatest at every job you're ever going to do. The employer isn't looking for you to be the greatest job person when they hire you. But I'll tell you this much. We can train for the technical side. We can't train on the personality side. You are who you are. Show me who you are. I'll work on the rest of the training. I'll work on getting the rest of the stuff done. And we have more often than not hired on that side, knowing we could technically train them. They show the right aptitudes. They show the right personality traits. They show the right reactions, although technically not as strong as some of the others. But this personality is absolutely a match to this organization. So we'll train on the rest. I'm not sure if this is a question for me. It's a laugh out loud from Renouf. Interested in being a tutor for behavioral interviews for the government. You're kind. You're kind if it's a question for me, and you're funny if it's a question for everybody. I agree. So here's the deal. I did serve on several hiring boards while I was in my tenure with the federal government. And with the board members that I had, I was very blessed. I had good ones. Good ones. So I never had to do this thing. If anything, they had to tutor me. So on these boards that I went on, they were awesome people, but this is years and years ago. I don't know what it's like today, and I don't envy any of you going out looking for a job today. I haven't done it in 20 years, as Kensington has been my home for that time, and since being a founding partner, we've had a ball for the last 20 years. We've had a great run. So currently, I get what people are looking for, but I haven't had to do it. I've watched 1,000 people go through it. We've done it for our organizations. However, listen, the big, the bad, and the ugly of this is employers have a job to do. They have a need to fill. Can't do it alone. They need you to provide them help. What they have done is they've lined up the elements in their organization that require completion to fit the chain of events that have to happen to deliver the product or service they need. They have a place for you in that position. You need to convince them you're the right fit for that link in the chain. Interestingly, if you continue to display that, the links in the chain get bigger and better. Your reputation in the environment gets bigger and better without you even knowing about it, because everybody you deal with say, hey, if you're going to go to this place, deal with this person. They're the best. And then all of a sudden, you're going to start getting questions. Shiva, David asks, are candidates who fit an employer's team dynamic more likely to be hired? Does this weigh heavily on your chances? Yes. Absolutely yes. Why? Okay. I get people in, I start to train them. Technically, they're very strong. Things are going very well. My key people don't like them. I'm going to give you, I'm sorry, I'm going to give you a hockey analogy. I'm one of the greatest puck handlers in the world. I get hired to play for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby decides he doesn't like me. Two of the other major players on the team decide they don't like me. What happens to me? I'm fired, because they'll say it's either this person or we're leaving. And the very important people in that group dynamic in the organization, they're likely on the board, and they're going to make the decision of, do I think this person is going to fit our dynamic? So as an employer, how do I assess foreign candidates? The reason for the question is that international applicants may not perform well in interviews, perhaps of cultural expectations of what interviews involve and employer preference. People like us. I like it. I love that question. Hate that we're still asking it today, but I love it. In our environment, in our world, we're made up of a diverse group of people. Canada essentially is a lucky place, in a sense, one sense, that we're a melting pot of cultures. Canada is roughly, I don't know what, 1492, so we're 500-600 years old. We don't have a whole lot of culture. I'm a French Acadian. In 1755, we got kicked out of here. We got kicked out of Atlantic Canada, put on boats, go die, whatever. We're back. You know, who knows? Go figure. Most of my relationship with employers don't have a people like them model. If I were to ask them, who are people like you? We're a melting pot of cultures in this society. So here it comes. People like them mean this. behavioral traits, cultural traits, I can make certain cultural um, um, mistakes without realizing it. I learned early on in my career. I was in Japan. I worked for a Japanese firm. I would meet my counterpart. They would hand me their business card, both thumbs up, showing me their name. I would hand mine out like this, starting. I would take their card, say, thank you very much, put it in my pocket. What an insult. They would take my card, place it gently on the table in front of who I am, out of respect of, I will know who you are, I can ask you by name, and I won't have to go in my pocket and pull it out. I was corrected really quick by my Japanese counterpart. We expect that there's going to be some cultural differences. We expect that in the behavior, there will be cultural differences. The only people like them that we're looking for are really, how much are these people themselves? How much of them are they looking for? If they were to tell me, for instance, culturally, I have certain things that are important to me, all right? I, for instance, need to do something between, my lunch hour is 12 to 1. Geez, I have something really important that I do between 11:30 and 12:30. Will they accommodate you? Will they penalize you for that? Chances are, if they like you and you're presenting yourself well, they'll accommodate. Most employers I know are flexible and they'll accommodate some of this stuff. However, if it were to be something that says, listen, my beliefs mean that I carry a submachine gun to work, probably not. There's laws, there's things, I can't accommodate that. Or, part of my accommodation is I can only work, between 7 and 10, and then I have to go away until 3, and I can work 3 to 7, but that doesn't matter because we close at 5. You get where I'm going with all of this, all right? So at the end of the day, the people on the board are looking at you to say, will they fit? 30% of your interview is going to be around technicality. 30% of your interview is going to be around your person. 30% of the interview is going to be their reaction to whether they think you fit. So it's a 30-30-30 split. You can have all the answers in the world. You've aced 30% of your interview. So I'm not sure, David, if that answered your question on employer's team dynamic. Are you more likely to get the job? Absolutely. No question at all. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I've been yakking away. Anything in particular that you'd like to discuss? Anything that's pertinent to you? How do you avoid a toxic workplace? You can't. Here's the challenge. Much like you're the best employee in the world when you're at your interview process, employers are the best employers in the world. Do you have workplace policies around harassment? Every employer is going to say yes, they do, because that's the right thing to say. Some of them don't. Not because necessarily that the owners or the managers are bullies themselves. While they were busy doing other things, these things have been creeping into workplaces for years. So the toxicity has built up over time. So here's the sad part about any employment area you're going to today. You're going to have high toxicity, medium toxicity, low toxicity. There are very few that I know of that have none. We strive for 0. We make mistakes. We do stupid things. We say silly things. We apologize for them later. But there will be some level everywhere. It's been around too long. If you notice that the people during the interview are being very arrogant and very ignorant to you, that's likely not a test, people. So I'm going to say it again. If they're being arrogant or belligerent towards you during the interview, that is not a test of what you can take. That is likely the workplace you're about to face. Walk away from that. Run, sorry, don't walk, run. And I'm asked, how do you deal with micromanagers? Micromanagers do their thing primarily out of one of 2 reasons. Number one, they lack the self-confidence themselves. Therefore, nobody can do it better than they can, and it's a question of their own self-confidence. Or B, they've just had such a horrid experience all the way around that they have to check and recheck and recheck. Otherwise, they're convinced, the bomb is going to drop, the other shoe is going to drop, like it always has. The best way to deal with a micromanager, let them micromanage you for a while until they understand that they don't have anything left to micromanage. They are comfortable with you, and naturally they will start gradually moving away. The power control seeker will likely never leave you alone. Okay, they seek the power, they seek the control. They're that other 20%, not the 80% that I talk about. However, if you've got a good job, but you're working for the 20%, you're working for the power control micromanager that's going to consistently pest you, try to structure it in such a way that they pester you the least amount possible. They will always find something to critique. They will always find something to say, and it's fine. Let them do it. Let them critique it. Let them come back. It's the way they feel good about themselves. And understand it has nothing to do with you. You could submit a perfect report. They just have to find something wrong with it. If I like my job well enough that I'm able to deal with this person, because I don't deal with them every day, but they are a power micromanager person, I'm going to let them find a thing here and there, let them have their thing, let it do it. I'm not going to take it personally, and I am not going to lose any sleep over it. I'll just make the correction the way they wanted to, and off I go. In my case, because I'm one of those, I'll likely plant a bug or two here. Oh, gee, thanks, boss. Great fix. Planted it there for you to find it anyway. I don't encourage that. I just do that because I'm a little left. Expected to ask what they want us to do after completing every task? No, geez, never. Let them come back to you. Don't go up and say, hey, how's this? Hey, how's this? Let them be the power-hungry monger who micromanages. Keep doing your job, and as they come back to see you, they come back to see you. If you have a manager, that's what a manager I had was. Oof. If you have a manager that comes back to you after every time you do a little something and you have to have it reviewed and critiqued and reviewed, unless you're an assistant editor in a publishing house, you have to decide whether or not this is the environment you want to work in. Because there comes a time and a place where you say, you know what, not for me. And maybe the year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever amount of time I've spent here is enough experience now under my belt to apply elsewhere. And if I'm a really good employee and it's good for me, I will go elsewhere. And I agree with you when you say not for me, it wouldn't be for me either. I would not be able to live in that environment, but there are some people who do and who don't, they don't like it, but they live with it. And God bless you, those that can live with it, because we need some of those jobs filled. And unfortunately, we do have those cranky managers that, mainly because of a lack of self-esteem. That's why they do this. And it's the way they exert their authority over everybody else. On the Q&A, David, thank you. That was a lot to unpack, but you covered quite a bit. Love the analogies. All right, well, you're welcome. And you're welcome to reach out to me as well, individually, if you have anything that you think is something that you didn't want to do on the chat line itself. You can, through Nasheen, get a hold of me, and we can potentially, have a short discussion on something else that was bothering you. How am I doing for time, Nasheen? I see that I have about 5 minutes. So I'm still good if anybody has any questions.
Yes, we have about 5 minutes. So if anybody has any more questions, please go ahead.
All right. Oh, are there any employers who prefer older employees? God, I hope so. God bless you for asking. Here's the deal. And this is an on-point question that I didn't cover, and I apologize. I'm going to do it now. Why is culture such an important thing for me to fit in the interview? Because older people are staying longer. Because younger people are coming in now, and I don't know what the generation is. There was Gen Ys, millennials, and now there's new millennials or papennials or whoever you are. All of these generations are now sharing a platform. We're all sharing a space. Are there employers who prefer older employees? Yes. Why? A, they can relate. B, they come from that era. C, blah, D, blah, but they also come with their hangups. Some of these older employees haven't evolved. They still think it's 1961. And they still think that these separations of cultures and everything exist, and they really struggle with interrelationship of different cultures. Not because they're bad people. Now, here's a good one. Who wouldn't want to hire a hardworking Newfie? If you've been to Newfoundland, you get that joke. Everybody in Newfoundland is your new best friend the minute you hit the rock. They're awesome people to deal with. They're awesome people to work with because they don't take anything too seriously. They take work seriously. They take safety seriously. They take all those things seriously. They don't take themselves or you as seriously as other people would. However, we now have this mesh of intergenerational people that have to work together, okay? So what I'm measuring for, when I'm looking for older employee, younger employee, new generation, anything else, I know the dynamic and the time and effort it took for me to build my work culture, and I want to try to preserve that. So we are often tasked during the interview process, could you look for that? Could you look for whether this person we think has what it takes? And in round two, we really hammer down to that. In situations, we get into conflictual situations, we get into cross-cultural issues, we get into linguistic profiles, we get into those things in the second round of interviews. Good on you for the question. Awesome question. In my experience, are there particular things science, technology, engineering employers want in employees that are unique? Yep, cultural fit. Most of these scientific, technological, engineering people that we're looking for, that we're hiring, will have the technical skills. They'll have the software backgrounds. They'll have the engineering backgrounds. My greatest asset at Kensington Associates is my right-hand guy, Mitch Verrier. He's an engineer, MBA. More than anything, he's a colleague. He is somebody that I've built such a relationship with. He is not afraid at all to tell me to pound sign when he thinks I'm wrong. And I'm not afraid at all to tell him that I think he's being overly, get it out your butt, you're being too stuck up on this stuff. And between the two of us, we're going to come out with a really, really good solution. And we look for that. So culturally, the particular things that are unique in science, technology, and engineering employers, they are looking for culture. We teach science, we teach technology, we teach engineering, and we do an extremely good job at it around the world, but they still have to fit an organization. They still have to fit these people I'm hiring from around the world to come together. My brother-in-law, who was an engineer with Lavalin, who did work in Africa, who did work all around the world, speaks to how important that capacity he had was, and he did this before the scandal, I'm sorry, how important that cultural porthole was for him to get those key positions. So don't kid yourself, in highly technical jobs, they're looking for cultural fit. That's what will set you apart.
Okay, I guess we should wrap it up now. In case you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to Larry directly, and we would be happy to answer your questions. And time to show myself again. Okay, Laurie, thank you again. This was extremely beneficial. While we try to understand what the employers want, it is also especially important to understand ourselves what we should expect from the employers as job seekers and prepare ourselves for that. So
Right.
thank you very much. And I'm sure all the participants shared this sentiment.
Thank you very much for having me. I super appreciated it. Thank you everybody for participating. And kudos to Ignite Fredericton for putting this on for you. It's a wonderful thing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So this was the end of our 3-part series of the virtual job search webinars. We would still certainly plan more programs. So I request the participants to share their feedback and let us know what they're looking for. How can we make our programs better? What should we cover as subjects or topics in our future programs so that we make them the most beneficial and on point for all our participants. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Stay safe. Cheers.